Hey, Husker fans, welcome back to the Husker Big Red YouTube channel. I'm Chris Peterson, and joining me, as always, is my co host, Danny Gillette. We're back here on this Monday morning, and we're going to discuss the fallout from the previous week of news here in Nebraska, covering Nebraska Cornhuskers. And we've got a few big topics, but the first one that we're going to be discussing is Ndamukong Suh, the all time Husker great, officially announced his retirement from the NFL over the weekend. So we're going to discuss his legacy with the Huskers. Should he be an NFL Hall of Famer, and kind of where does he rank in among the best defensive players in college football history, certainly in Nebraska history. So we'll discuss that. We have some recruiting updates with the commitment coming from Valdin Sone, and then the national media drinking the Kool-Aid once again. We've got a few national experts predicting around 9 or 10 wins, so we're going to discuss that and how Husker Nation kind of feels about that. So if you haven't subscribed already, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, get into the comments section, let us know what you think. And Danny, how are you on this Monday morning, man?
I'm doing well. Actually, we're almost close to Big Ten media days, so the season is quickly approaching, and that always makes me happy.
Yeah, SEC media days will be on tap this week, so you can get ready to hear about how it's the greatest conference in the world and how it means more and blah blah blah. So get ready for that. And then Big Ten media days next week in Las Vegas, which makes no sense at all. So there you go. But I guess the
Nothing says Big
first,
Ten like Las Vegas, although now
yeah,
I
no,
guess maybe.
I mean, a little bit more, I guess, now than it used to be. But the biggest news, I would say over the past few days, Ndamukong Suh, the Nebraska Cornhusker great, played with the Lions, the Rams, the Dolphins, the Buccaneers in the NFL. Won a Super Bowl championship. I mean, he's done pretty much everything. Got invited to the Heisman Trophy ceremony, finished fourth in the Heisman voting. Won basically every other award you could win: the Bronco, the Lombardi, the Nagurski, the AP Player of the Year. With his 12 sack season back in 2009, I think he had 24 tackles for loss. Truly an incredible player. I think every Nebraska fan will always remember, that game against Texas, where he just truly dominated. I'm sure that Colt McCoy still, wakes up in the middle of the night seeing Ndamukong Suh, taking him down. And that truly was a magical season. It's been one of the best seasons that 2009 season Nebraska football has had since the retirement of Tom Osborne. I mean, truly.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I mean, his interception against Colorado when he ran that back for a touchdown in 2008, he decided to come back for another year. And yeah, I can say this, I've never seen in my time as a Nebraska football fan, I've never seen a player as dominant as him defensively. I mean, just the way that he would manhandle people, getting blocked by two or three guys, truly was incredible. I still feel he should have won the Heisman Trophy in 2009, who won Mark Ingram that year. There's no way that Mark Ingram was a better player than Ndamukong Suh. I mean, he was on a better team. He was a good player on a good team, but there's no way on God's green earth that Ndamukong Suh wasn't the best player in college football that season, and it's a travesty that he did not win the Heisman. I mean, he won every single award. He was the AP Player of the Year. How do you win AP Player of the Year and finish fourth? And I know Tommy Frazier got screwed too, but Ndamukong Suh definitely deserved to hoist the Heisman Trophy. And in my opinion, he's the best defensive player in Nebraska history, and one of the he's probably on the Mount Rushmore of college football history in terms of defensive greats. So, what do you think about all of them?
Yeah, no, it's really, you really put together a good kind of retrospective there, because when you think about cataclysmic football players and game changers, and even game changers might be underselling it a little bit when you're talking about Ndamukong Suh. I mean, he was just an absolute animal in the best way defensively. He could take over games by himself. I mean, you mentioned the Big 12 championship game back in 2009, and that was just one of his many solid performances. And he was just a player that you know not only did teams have to plan for, but they had to game plan around. And you see that a lot with corners and players in the secondary. Sometimes don't throw to this side, don't throw to that side. It's not too often where you have to game plan around the defensive lineman, but Sue was that dude. And it was really impressive that he continued that in the NFL with the way he played, the physicality he played, the violence he played. You know, he was just a dominant player all around for many, many years. I mean, and he was the fourth Husker at the time to to win the Lombardi and Outland Trophy in the same season. And like you said, I'm not really sure how he didn't win the Heisman in 09, especially when you look at, like you said, he won the AP Player of the Year that year. And but anyway, not to go down that road, he was just a fantastic player, both in college and in the pros, and it's a well-deserved retirement on the day of his father's passing last year. It's the 1-year anniversary of his father's passing when he announced his retirement. So definitely a significant day for him in many ways.
And looking back at that 13-12 loss in the Big 12 championship game, which, very painful loss for Husker fans, the 1 second, but the 1 second left on the clock. But Ndamukong Suh's performance that game, in a single game, I don't know if I've ever seen a defensive player play like that. I mean, Texas, they did go to the national championship game. They lost. Colt McCoy got hurt like in the first quarter, so they didn't really have a chance to, put their best foot forward. So, I mean, this was, a legitimate national championship team, and Nebraska was not that back then. I mean, I'm trying to think about who the quarterback was in that game, and I can't even remember right now off the top of my head who the quarterback was. And it was like Bo Pelini's, I think, second full year as the head coach, and the way he just almost carried that team. That sounds right. And I could look it up, but just in that game, he had 12 tackles, 12 combined tackles, 10 solo tackles. A defensive tackle had 10 solo tackles, 6 tackles for loss, 4.5 sacks. I mean, he single-handedly almost beat the number 1 team in the country. I mean, it was incredible, and we can debate about that 1 second or whatever, but that performance to me, I don't know that I've ever seen a single game like that. I mean, I know that Charles Woodson, who won the Heisman, had some truly great games, but some of his best moments too came on special teams, or like he doesn't win the Heisman Trophy if he doesn't make some of those plays as a receiver, doesn't have the interception or the punt return for a touchdown against Ohio State. And Ndamukong Suh never got that opportunity, because he didn't play on offense or anything, but he did score 2 touchdowns in his career, not in the 2009 season though, unfortunately. But I just, looking back at it, even in the NFL, I don't know that I've ever seen somebody will a team, an average team like that over. I mean, they didn't win the game, but they should have won the game, and it would have been almost solely because of him. And I've never seen anything like that before or since.
Yeah, and when you look at the rest of that Nebraska defense and the talented players that they did have, he really stood out among that group. And it seems like he does obviously catch a little bit of flack for some of his on-field antics, but at the same time, it doesn't take away what he did as a player. And I think sometimes people get caught up. Now, granted, what he did, not to rehash it, but wasn't smart. But even still, that doesn't take away from what he was able to do as a player.
And so, yeah, number 2 overall with the Detroit Lions. He had a tremendous NFL career. I guess he played for the Eagles too. I forgot about that. But yeah, made 3 Super Bowls, was a 3-time first-team All-Pro, was a 5-time All-Pro selection, a 3-time Pro Bowler. It's interesting. I think it's obviously going to be, one of the questions, like, is Ndamukong Suh a Hall of Famer? And in my opinion, yes, he's a Hall of Famer. I know that he gets he's not as popular for some of the things that happened, some of the issues with Detroit and whatever, but I mean, it's not the Hall of Morality, and so what? I mean, he didn't, outside of that, I mean, there's a lot of other guys that have done, he's never had any off-field incidents that I've ever been aware of. I mean, things happen in the heat of the game, but he had 71.5 sacks, 600 tackles, 130 tackles for loss, 214 quarterback hits. So yeah, this guy definitely, in my opinion, deserves to be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. I think it'll be a shame if it doesn't happen, but my prediction is that it will. I mean, he's one of the great defensive players ever in the history of football, so he should be enshrined in the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
And he's a first ballot College Football Hall of Famer, I believe, for 2026. So I expect, obviously, for him to get in there as well. And it's good to see him get his flowers. And it also, provides a blueprint for how to get, the current Huskers back into the NFL, having that pass rushing physical lineman who can, literally take over games and, play at a high level defensively.
And so I kind of put out a few comments, or just kind of to see what some other Husker fans, would say. And is Ndamukong Suh the best defensive player of all time, or if in Nebraska history was the question that I asked, excuse me. And so Husker Wave, replied, he's the best in college football history. Husker Tedethy, if not one of the best defensive players of all time. Another Husker fan, I mean, it's pretty obvious that he is. Look at what he did in the Texas game. So for the most part, it seems like Nebraska fans are in agreement. I haven't seen anybody mention any other names in terms of a player in Nebraska history that's better than Ndamukong Suh. And there were some great ones. There's been a lot of great ones over the years, but I think he certainly, in terms of Nebraska history, I think he takes the cake. So
yeah, and when you talk about college football history, that's a more interesting argument, but definitely Nebraska history, for sure. What do you think about the greatest college football player of all time?
Yeah, I mean, greatest defender. Yeah, I don't know. I think he's definitely in the conversation. I think it would be, it'd be Ndamukong Suh. I think it'd be Charles Woodson. That's a tough debate because it's hard to kind of quantify defensive players. I'd say that Warren Sapp, I mean, he got invited to the Heisman Trophy ceremony too. A lot of people forget that, but he got invited as well. So, I mean, I'd have to put him on that list too. And Warren Sapp had a hell of a NFL career too. But I mean, if there's anybody that, in my time watching football, I was born in 86, so I've probably been watching college football since like 1990, 91 when I was 4 or 5 years old. So, I mean, just to put that into context, but I'd say Warren Sapp and Ndamukong Suh and Charles Woodson are probably the three best defensive players that I've seen in college football. Now, I'm probably missing somebody, obviously, but those are the guys.
Reggie White, although you've never seen Reggie White, I don't think, but
Reggie White. I did see him when he was with the Packers, and he definitely would. Tennessee probably would be up there. I remember Jabril Peppers got invited to the Heisman Trophy ceremony, but I wouldn't put him as one of the best defenders. I think he was just kind of a great all around player. I'm trying to think of other guys from the past, like 30 years. I mean, I know that Georgia and Alabama have had some truly great defenses, but it feels like that they've had more collections of talent. I don't know that there was one player on that team that truly, stood out like Ndamukong Suh did, or like a Charles Woodson, or I mean, even Warren Sapp. I mean, he had Ray Lewis on his team too, but he was just and part of it I think was his personality too. But I just can always remember I remember Warren Sapp and because I hated Warren Sapp. I hated Miami. I hate everything about Miami. But I remember him at the Heisman thing, kind of making a joke like he was going to steal it, since that would be the only time he would get his hands on it, type of thing. But
I wasn't saying you were old there, Chris. So don't worry. I was thinking about college Reggie White, but I mean, and I know he's not really comparable to the names that we listed, but from who I watched growing up, and the type of impact that he had. Tyrann Mathieu was a type of game-changing player with kick returning, obviously defensively. So I'm trying to think of the biggest cataclysmic type of player that I've seen, and the Honey Badger is the first one that comes to mind. I know he's probably not the best defensive player in college football, but he was so explosive. Tyrann Mathieu and also obviously Devin Hester were the two players that really stood out in my mind as, whoa, these guys are impact players from day one. Mathieu and Hester both had very solid pro careers. I'm not sure if Matthew's still in the league. Is he? I think so.
Yeah, he is. Yep, I'm pretty sure he still is. But yeah,
Saints, I think.
Fun fact: I actually saw Devin Hester's first career punt return for a touchdown in the NFL live at Lambeau Field, so that was cool.
Oh, did you really? Wow.
Yeah. I wasn't too thrilled at the time because I'm a Packers fan.
No, it's one of those things you can look back on now and appreciate.
Yeah, we're like, oh, That was kind of cool. Yeah, and it was like I had no idea that later that year he was going to return return a kickoff in the Super Bowl for a touchdown. But anyway,
No, Devin Hester was just, whew, he
yeah, he
was so
was.
fun.
He was. So yeah, I would say defensive players, and it kind of shows I think how underappreciated the defensive side of the ball is. Because I mean, I could name you a million. Vince Young, Cam Newton, Tim Tebow, Reggie. But I mean, I could just go on and on with offensive players who have been like, uber game changers. But it's just I guess it's a little bit harder because it's like, you look at Aaron Donald and he was truly great, and he was great at Pittsburgh too, but he wasn't on a team where we really, recognized how dominant he was. So I don't know. It's a difficult question, but I think it does reinforce to me that he's, one of the 4 or 5 best defensive players ever. I mean, you probably could go back. I mean, if you really had to, you probably could include a guy like Chuck Bednarik. I mean, it's hard to compare all these different eras, but Ndamukong, I mean, this dude, I have never seen anybody treat offensive linemen like rag dolls like him. I mean, he just would just throw these guys like they were nothing. And I do want to say this, it was one of these funny memes, but when they had the thing of, one gorilla versus 100 men or whatever, you saw that debate. And then I saw the thing about, it was like that meme, and it was like the woman being like, I'm sure my husband's thinking about other women or whatever, and he's sitting in bed and he's being like, I wonder how many Ndamukong Suhs it would take to beat a gorilla. I bet it wouldn't even take 100 Ndamukong Suhs. It would probably only take 50. And I'm like, it would probably only take like 2 Ndamukong Suhs, maybe just one Ndamukong Suh. I would put one Ndamukong Suh up against pretty much any living being in the world, man or beast, and I think he'd have a pretty good chance.
Honestly, the closest player I've probably seen to him in terms of impact with my own eyes is Luke Kuechly. Luke Kuechly was so dominant in college. I mean, I'm just refreshing my memory on his stats now. He played 3 seasons, 158 combined tackles his freshman year, 183 combined tackles his sophomore year, and 191 combined tackles in his junior year. And I know he's not a pure pass rusher like Suh was, and maybe not even the most, dominant player like Suh was, but boy, he had a nose for the football. So I think, obviously Tyrann Mathieu and Devin Hester, I mentioned those guys as impact players, but the closest I've seen from with my eyes to Suh is Luke Kuechly, without a doubt.
Yeah, he was damn good at Boston College for sure. So yeah, one of the best ever, and it was a pleasure to watch him, and I look forward to him being enshrined in the NFL Hall of Fame. So kind of fun to think back on that. Let's switch gears here really quick. Now that we've gushed about Ndamukong Suh for a while, which I could probably do all day. We could probably just sit here and I remember the rain game against Missouri where he killed Blaine Gabbert, and there was a lot of fun moments with Ndamukong Suh, and frankly, there haven't been that many over the past 2 decades. So, Ndamukong Suh's responsible for a lot of them. I mean, Rex Burkhead, Amir Abdullah, but, he's probably given me more great memories than any Nebraska player over the, since the
Roy Halou was one of my favorites.
Roy Halou, I loved Roy Halou. Yeah, he was awesome. The Missouri game where they played him here and just crushed him again, I love that.
The Kansas State game when he broke off the huge run.
Yep. So anyways, let's we'll have a recruiting update. We're going to put out another video that's a little bit more in depth on recruiting, so we're just going to kind of touch on what's happened over the past few days. So I guess the first big piece of news, I think, on Sunday, Brandon Collier from PPI, who's kind of the top advisor for Valdin Sone, the 6'4", 320-pound defensive tackle, he said on X that Sone is going to be announcing a commitment this week. Again, feels like the finalists are Georgia, Nebraska, Florida. Auburn's been mentioned too, but I've been hearing them less and less. So this is a Nebraska, Florida, Georgia battle. There haven't been really any crystal balls or anything. I haven't checked today, so I mean, no. I could be lying, but
I haven't seen it either.
Yeah. So where does your gut tell you this recruitment is headed going into this week? Because it's, a lot of these recruitments, we talked about this earlier, but like they are like contested, and I've just seen more recruitments with the crystal balls aren't coming as early, so it seems like there's just more drama, and I don't know if that's the NIL aspect of it or what's happening, but this recruitment has been particularly interesting. So what's your gauge on this going into decision week?
I still think it's Georgia, but looking back on it now, Nebraska was even interested in Sone beginning in January, so it's not like they haven't made a push. I think it's just going to be Georgia because I think Georgia has the most money, and I understand that they have a ton of defensive linemen, but Sone, I mean, if you can get him, no matter how many defensive linemen you have, you go get him. So I think it's still going to be Georgia, but I'd love to see Nebraska win this one out.
And then another, not a surprise, but Calvin Thomas did come off the board to North Carolina on Saturday. So, that's that. And then another player, Jacob Eberhardt, committed to Illinois, which ended up being a little bit of a surprise. The St. Louis, Missouri kid, Nebraska was very much, he took his official visit. I thought Nebraska was going to get him. I have to be honest. He's, out of St. Louis, 6'3", 200-pound athlete, probably would have been like a linebacker for Nebraska. Runs the 100 meter. He runs the 100-meter dash in 11.26. So really good player. And Oklahoma was right in the mix. Alabama. So a really nice win for Brett Bielema and the Illinois Fighting Illini in their 2026 class. So in terms of the recruiting update over the past week, without spoiling our other video too much, I think that's pretty much all we have to touch. So we'll touch on Tuesday. On our video, we're going to get a little bit more into Sone and some flip targets that Nebraska could potentially be pursuing in the 2026 class. So check that video out on Tuesday. And the last topic I wanted to cover today in this Fallout episode is the national media and even my guy Steve Sipple. I've been reading Steve Sipple for about 20 years. He's my favorite Nebraska writer. He's super gracious. I even emailed him one time as a fan before I even got into the journalism business, and he wrote me back, and I've never forgot that. But anyway, when Steve Sipple is predicting a 9-3 record, because he's kind of he's not Mr. Kool-Aid drinker, although he had a pretty funny column where he's like, I'm sorry, I've predicted so many like rosy things for the Huskers and none of them have come true. And
well, haven't we all kind of?
I mean, yeah. And so his whole column, I thought it was interesting because he goes, I sat down on my kitchen table where I write next to the fridge, he had in parentheses, which I thought was funny. You need to eat things sometimes when you write, you get tired. But he basically was like, I looked at the schedule and I came out with 9-3. And he's like, if Joel Klatt was sitting here at my kitchen table, he'd agree with me. And so he was kind of almost like apologizing for it because, it's not like to, I think people are like hesitant to pump the hype train, but as you mentioned off air before we came on the air that Phil Steele, college football expert, has ranked Nebraska's schedule as the easiest in the Big Ten. So I think that is kind of guiding this a little bit. But within a series of days, we've had Steve Sipple of Husker Online predict a 9-3 season. We had Joel Klatt. I don't know if he actually predicted wins and losses. I think he might have, but
I think he did one where it was like a team's most likely to make the college football playoff.
I think it was teams that were most likely to make it for the first time, and Nebraska made the top 10 in that list. So, he's saying they're a playoff contender, and then JD Pickle from On3, he's going and doing like win-loss predictions for everybody in like a minute. And so he predicted Nebraska to go 9-3, and his 3 losses were Michigan, Penn State, and USC off the top of my head. So, so I don't know. I mean, I've been saying that they could win 9 or 10 games. I think you've been around that same area. Like, are we doing the right thing? Are we following the right kind of, drinking the Kool-Aid, I guess? Are we doing the right thing this time? Or are we making the same mistake that, we've made seemingly since, Scott Frost was the head coach since he was in the news last week?
I think everything lines up to have a 9-3, 10-2 type of season. I really do. Depth on both sides of the football and things like that. And I'll say if they don't have a 9-3, 8-4 season, then that raises questions about Matt Rhule, in my opinion, because he has a track record of having teams really make that jump in his third year. And so this is the year. I mean, heck, we almost made a bowl game in his first season, a 5-7 record. We made a bowl game last season, 7-6, but now it's about making an even bigger leap. And I think anything less than, honestly, 9-3 would be a failure. And I hate saying that because that's a pretty big record, but I mean, you look at all the depth that we have. You look at the wide receivers that we have. Absolutely crazy. You have Dylan Raiola, who should be improved. He's worked really hard in the offseason. So I think it's okay to drink the Kool-Aid. And I think anything less than 8-4 would be a failure.
I think that's fair. I think, if you don't, I mean, they won 7 last year, so I think you have to at least win 8 games. I mean, 8-4, I think, would still be a step in the right direction. I think it would, I think it would keep the fan base happy. I don't think that there would be some that would be like Matt Rhule needs to go, but
there always is for every coach,
Yeah, I mean, and that's just, fans get crazy. But I feel like 8-4 would, for the most part, keep people happy. But I think within these next 2 years, I mean, with Raiola, you gotta start, pushing a little bit higher. And yeah, look at this schedule. It's a great opportunity. There's that first game against Cincinnati. I mean, got to take care of business in that one. And then you got Michigan at home. I really feel like if they beat Michigan at home, I think this can be a playoff team, and that might be going too far with the Kool-Aid. But I mean, I just don't know if I feel like if they win that game, I feel like they're going to have a new level of confidence that they just haven't had in a while. You know what I mean? And because I feel like that'll be a ranked matchup. Maybe I don't know if Michigan's going to beat Oklahoma, so maybe it will be. But I feel like if Nebraska wins its first 2 games or 3 games or whatever, and if Michigan beats Oklahoma, that's going to be a top 25 game because Michigan's going to be ranked. And I think by then Nebraska would be ranked. And if Nebraska could actually just win that game, confidence does a hell of a lot for you. And when you actually believe that you can win those close games and beat those good teams, it really does make a difference. So I feel like if they can just get over that hump, I feel like that will help them beat teams like Maryland and Minnesota, when those games get a little bit tough, and, maybe they probably lose one at USC and they probably lose one at Penn State. But like, as long as USC doesn't suck, I mean, if they're like a 7-8 win team and you lose it, and you don't get blown out by
I'm
Penn
nervous
State,
about USC. I really am.
I am too. Yeah. I think that's going to be, I think they'll probably lose that game. But if you or if not, just if they beat Michigan or USC or Penn State, to be honest, I think all they have to do is win one of those 3 games. If they win one of those 3 games and win the rest, they're a playoff team. There's no way a Big Ten team wins 10 games and doesn't make the playoffs. So I just, that's how I feel about it. I don't know again, that might be taking it a little bit too far, but it's not outside the realm of possibility that Nebraska, is in the playoff mix come the final week of the season.
See, as long as Penn State has Drew Aller at quarterback, there's always a chance. No, but everybody who's watched this knows my love for Drew Aller. But while
now watch Drew Aller throw like 5 tutties against us this year. The Danny Gillette revenge game.
Yeah, we always make backup quarterbacks look good. I still remember Aiden.
He calls you out on the post game interview. Yeah. I mean, that would be pretty sweet, actually.
Any publicity is good publicity, right? Get those subscribers coming in. But
it is.
To me, while I agree with you that the Michigan game is important, I also believe the stretch, to me, the big stretch is the Maryland, Minnesota, back-to-back kind of stretch where there's, not a week in between rest, 6 days, Friday night game in Minnesota, coached by, PJ Fleck, who's a very good coach, has got an extension. And to me, if they can take care of business in Maryland and Minnesota, that will give me confidence that they're a playoff team, because Minnesota has historically had, Nebraska's number over the past couple of years. Maryland has had Nebraska's number. So if they can survive that stretch on short days rest, then I'll be convinced.
Yeah, that's I'm looking at that stretch too, and I think in my predictions, I think I predicted them to beat Michigan but lose one of those 2 games, because it's not. Yeah, that's going to be a tough stretch, and those teams are better than we realize. But yeah, really excited for the season. 45 days away, I believe now. 45 days away till kickoff against Cincinnati. So with that in mind, we will wrap up here, you guys. If you haven't already, please do us a huge favor. Hit the like button. Hit the subscribe button. It's totally free, and you get a lot of great Husker content, recruiting, everything else. We're ramping up with the season starting. But get into the comment section as well. Let us know what you think about Ndamukong Suh. He's the best college football defensive player of all time. Should he have won the Heisman Trophy back in that 2009 season? Let us know what you think. And as always, go Big Red.
Go Big Red.